Have you ever wondered why males and females will hold their body fat distribution slightly differently? As I'm sure you've noticed, females will tend to hold more of their body fat around their lower half, around their hips and thighs, and males will tend to hold their body fat around their midsection. And this becomes more pronounced as we age. And of course, I'm sure you're already aware that females will actually make more estrogen, which helps to produce more of a female form, so wider hips, breast tissue, and things like that. Whereas testosterone really doesn't produce those characteristics. It helps to produce more like, male hair distribution and things like that. And testosterone is also involved in creating more muscle mass, and this will also change the distribution of, muscle in males to females. But there are actually other things that play a role in how we distribute body fat. So the adrenal glands actually play quite a role in the distribution of body fat within our body. So the adrenal glands are the little triangular shaped organs that sit on the top of our kidneys. And they actually have the ability to produce corticosteroids. So when they get a stimulation that we need to produce our stress hormones, they get activated and they start producing cortisol and actually testosterone. And what's really interesting to note about this is that males can both produce testosterone in their testes, which is where most of it is produced, but they can also produce it within the adrenal glands, whereas females will only produce testosterone in their adrenal glands. Now, these corticosteroids like cortisol and testosterone are actually very important because they are involved in our stress response. So their main roles are going to be, lipolysis, breaking down our fat tissue, making glucose available, all the things that you'd imagine we'd need in order to get away from some kind of predator. We need to run very quickly and get away from whatever the stressor is. It's also important to decrease our immune system, which also makes sense because we don't need to be thinking about long-term things like our immune system when we're just trying to get away from whatever it is that we're trying to run away from. We just need to stay alive, essentially. And so both cortisol and testosterone play a role in this stress response. But what's really interesting to note is that when we are in a stressful situation, as I said, we're going to need to mobilize our energy sources, our fat and our glucose. We're going to need to take them out of storage and essentially be able to break them down to use that energy to run away from whatever it is. And what's interesting is that we need fat that is more easily mobilized. And there are certain parts of the body, like around the midsection and actually the upper back, that are much more able to be mobilized very quickly as opposed to other areas of the body like our thighs. And so if we are actually producing more of these hormones, more testosterone and cortisol, then we are actually going to hold more body fat within these regions. So this makes a lot of sense because if we think about this historically for a human, females are going to be producing not only more estrogen, which tends to make her distribute her fat around her lower half of her body, but she's also producing less testosterone. She can only produce it within the adrenal glands, whereas a male can produce it both in the testes and in the adrenal glands. And as I said, this is going to make you hold the fat more in your midsection, and this is useful because it's more easily mobilized. And if you think about this, males are more likely in, ancient times to be running around searching for animals that we're going to kill. And they're more likely to be exposed to predators. So they need to have more mobilizable fat that they can use to run away from a predator, whereas a female is less likely to be doing these sort of jobs. Two last points on this. I think it's a really interesting thing to look at somebody who's experiencing a condition called Cushing's syndrome. And this is essentially where this person is making, for whatever reason, too much of their adrenal corticosteroids. And so they tend to hold their body fat all around here. They tend to be quite lean around their legs. They have this large belly and quite a bit of fat held in the back of their neck. And so you can see just what an input the adrenal glands have on our fat distribution. Another thing to note here as well is that males actually will tend to be able to mobilize more energy in general. And that's a lot to do with the fact that testosterone will actually stimulate the thyroid gland. And we know that the thyroid hormones, like thyroxine, is actually, it's one of its main jobs is to make us mobilize, our fuel sources around the body and make us burn through more energy. So if we have more testosterone, it's going to stimulate the thyroid gland to produce more thyroid hormones, and we're going to stimulate our metabolism more.